How are you doing? I freaking out. I'm sorry. I keep asking just because I feel like every day I'm getting so nervous, like more and more nervous. Because I think at the beginning, like there's like this uncertainty, and then so you're like it's super panic mode. But then as you start to hear people getting sick, it's further away. And like legit yesterday, there was like four people like in different parts of my life that they're affected like directly, or people that I know, and yeah, it's like it's coming in closer and closer, and I think that's why I get so anxious all the time.
Yeah, total anxiety. Because also we hear, oh, there's the vaccine and people are starting to get the vaccine and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now it mutated. And like, what does that mean? So now
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
great, now we have to worry about that, or start researching that too. Like, what? I don't get it. I don't get how they didn't see a mutation before. Like that
yeah.
stuff, like I
Wow.
just don't understand. So that's why I'm like, okay, I don't want to hear anything anymore. I don't want to like read about anything anymore. Because it's super sad and people keep dying and people keep getting infected, and it's just crazy.
I definitely agree with you, Ricky. I feel like the more time passes, the more anxious I get. And recently there's been like, family members or people I know that I'm close to that have been getting COVID. And they're doing all the safety procedures that they need to do, but they still manage to get it. And it's becoming very real for me, especially since a lot of my family members are starting to get it. For example, my sister-in-law got it, and she was like really sick. And my brother was there, and I have two little nephews. One's 3 years old, and then the other one is like 5 months. So I was very scared all the time, and if they got it or anything. Thankfully, they're okay now. She tested negative, so she's better. But it was just that constant fear, like for my nephews. I was like, oh my god, I hope they're okay. I hope they're not gonna get sick, not gonna get this, because they're so little. So it's definitely been affecting me a lot more because like I said, I'm seeing all these people that are in my bubble that are getting it, and I'm starting to get scared. And like the future is so unpredictable right now, especially with this new strain that they found in the UK. Like it's just like it's getting more intense and more scary, and it feels like a movie. Like it feels
They
like we're
think
in a
it's here.
movie.
I think it's here already.
Oh, it is?
They're thinking it's here. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like I don't know. I'm trying to keep good thoughts. Say it's okay. We're all gonna be okay, but I feel like it's getting more dangerous every day. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, especially since Arizona has like the highest numbers right now, which is crazy because we won't they won't implement the right safety precautions, and they won't shut down, and so the numbers keep skyrocketing, and it's crazy because like people are dying like every day, and like no one's doing the right thing about it.
How are things changing for each of you? Like, what's different now as far as like how you just go to every day? I mean, just as an example, like normally we would be in a rehearsal space together having these conversations, probably making a tableau and doing exercises and making rad work in the space. But now we're on Zoom. What other than this, like, what else is changing your worlds that are now that the pandemic is here?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me that changed was, when school moved online, I went from dancing in a studio every single day for 2 hours to not at all. And that's been really, really weird for me. And I remember, like, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was sitting and I was like, yeah, I used to take breaks if I switched from, like, studio to company or to competition, but it was, like, a month, and I would, like, lose my mind. But this is the longest break I've taken from dancing since I was 2 years old. And it's very weird. So it's just kind of like trying to balance that and like be like it's okay. And like sometimes, I'll be in my room and I'll just try to do like exercises and stuff, but it's small and limited. So just trying to be like okay with like not dancing and training has been really strange. In the beginning, I was like, this is so nice. My body loves this. I'm having a break. And now my body is like, we don't really like this as much as we thought we did. But I'm just trying to, rationalize that and I can give that up for a little bit, you know, because if that keeps my family safe and like other people safe, I'm willing to do that. But it's just such a big part of me that's just like gone, and I like don't know what to do about it. So that's like the biggest thing that's like changed for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think for most everyone that I've talked to, doing art is really weird for everyone right now. It's like you can still do it somewhat depending on what your art is, but it's difficult and it's not the same feeling, which is fine, I guess, but like everyone wants the feeling that they had back.
Oh.
Which kind of ties in with the like.
You brought you brought an interesting thing up, because like, and I think I agree with you when you talk about art. Like, we want to be able to engage with art the way that we used to, but what about everything else? Like, do we want, because everything has shifted. Everyone keeps calling it the new normal. Like, do we want to go back to normal before? Like, in comparison, I guess. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
I understand what you're saying. I think there's some aspects of it where I'm like, I don't want things to kind of just be as relaxed as they were. I think in terms of like cleaning precautions and stuff like that, you know how like when you have like a stuffy throat or like a runny nose and you just go to school and it was like, okay, like I'm going to blow my nose all the time. But I think now, hopefully, when people are feeling a little under the weather, you can wear a mask to school, you know, especially like young kids. Like if one person was sick in like first grade, the whole class was sick in first grade. So I think maybe with things like that, I think going forward, I'm not going to just like, once I get the vaccine, I'm not going to just like get rid of my masks. I think that's something I'm still going to implement in my life when I'm not feeling good. So at least that's one thing for me. And I think I'm just going to be more cautious about, you know, what I'm touching, where I am. I just think I'm always going to be a little bit more paranoid about getting sick, even if it's just like the flu.
I definitely think there are valuable things that we can take from our past lives and for pre-pandemic practices and social things that we've done always into a new future. I do think we can still take some of those things that are actually valuable, but there's a lot of good things that have kind of come out of pandemic. One of those things, I know, Maddie, you kind of touched on this. There was like your body was feeling happy in the beginning when we were experiencing pandemic for the first time, and like really just getting a lot of time to ourselves. I know that when I started school, I get 10-minute breaks in between each class. That is crazy. I get to read a book between that time. Like, I don't have to think about school or nothing. So good. But that's the kind of thing that I think is really valuable. And I know it's also been really valuable for other people around me, like my parents, because they get a lot of time to themselves. And they get to like do more things that are more fun to them, and they don't have to worry about too much when they come home, and they don't have to take what they're doing at work home with them often. But at the same time, like, yes, there are obviously a lot of like negatives, or not negatives, things that have always existed, but are now like, there's like, there's an interesting focus, and I'm just going to say that there's just an interesting focus on some things that have always existed, and now it seems the pandemic and this time and certain events brought some very needed light onto them. And yeah, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride for all of us, and it's still going to happen. And like most of us have said, the future is still unknown, obviously.
Yeah. No, I think to kind of lift up what you're saying, like this idea. I mean, because it's a nice opener to what I wanted to like kind of like pivot us for a moment. Is we had the one virus, the COVID, but then we have the illuminating of the racial inequities because of what was happening because of the pandemic. Does anyone want to thoughts on that? Like that was the thing. It's just been like such a chaotic year because it's like this hit. I mean, I feel like a lot. I mean, we've been doing this work that we've known, the racism that is embedded in our country has always been there. We've always seen it. We all have experienced it. We all talk about it, but then it just like revealed itself in this shocking way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think also with the events that just happened a couple of days ago in the Capitol, I
Yeah.
mean, that right there is the perfect example of why we talk about defund the police, or why we talk about police brutality and them murdering African Americans, people of color. This just that right there, the pictures, the videos. It's like no one can say, well, that really doesn't happen. Or, I mean, and if anybody does still say that or think that, then I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to engage with you, because then obviously you're not, you're wanting to continue to, shove that under the rug, as it's been all these years. And so I really feel that with this quarantine and the pandemic, that did show us all of that and put light on that, like Johann said. It's super important to me as a citizen of this country, to really ponder and think about my privilege, even though I'm a woman of color, but I do believe I have some privileges, and act upon those in a positive way. Meaning, my mindset, learn more about the history of this country, and then that way, as we move forward and this pandemic either dies down or we control it or whatever that may be, we can really, like, I can come together with my peers, my family, just overall everybody, and be more caring, more mindful, stick up more when things that are happening in front of me are not okay, like racism, and be a part of the solution. That's what I feel that is happening, for me personally, and I'm excited about that, because then that ignites my hope, because I was like hopeless for a minute with this whole pandemic, and everything that was happening. African Americans being murdered by the police, and so I was like, oh my God, like we're in a pandemic and these things are still happening. Like it's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So that gives me hope that we can come together, and we can, really make a change. People in office now, also how we voted, all that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
One thing you brought up about a good comment on like privilege and like seeing with this time, seeing what privilege each person has, and me being a white male with a decent we have, I mean, my family and I are, I would say, like comfortably in middle class, and it's been really my whole like perspective on things. I've always been a learner, and I've always been a seeker of knowledge, and really just trying to learn about the things that are really important and to making change happen. But this year really kicked it into gear because I felt like I was behind really strangely. But like it was important to see that I could use what this time is giving me to do that learning and continue to do that learning. And I know I'm a part of the solution by doing that learning, but there's other things I can do now that I do have some knowledge that I would love to enact, but there are things like COVID that are preventing me because I don't know how to navigate COVID yet professionally and stuff, aside from school. But definitely like just taking it's there's been such a focus on integration of every little bit about what happened over summer, and the talking and the discussing and the learning of the history of Black people in America at my school, let alone in every subject across the board. When it comes to environmental sustainability, even like we're learning about that, and even about Phoenix, period, just Phoenix, like what happened in Phoenix, every bit of history in Phoenix, and the history of discrimination and gentrification and redlining and what everything that happened to South Phoenix. And it's just been really it's been really like you said, Estela, hopeful. It brought me hope, and it definitely gave me new pathways to explore.
Trinity, you were about to say something?
Oh yeah, a lot of things. I was thinking about a lot of different things while everybody was kind of talking, but I wanted to talk about accessibility because that has definitely shifted since, you know, last March when the pandemic all started, and knowledge has definitely became more accessible. And usually when we like think about accessibility, we don't think about, I don't know how to say it, like able-bodied people, and we don't think about the people, like we don't think about, yeah, we don't think about able-bodied people who like need that accessibility, but everybody needs accessibility right now, whether it's like finances, whether it's just like talking to that one person, or like all the knowledge that you're able to like see on social media for young people. You can hop on, if you want to know what abolition is, just hop on social media right now, and it's so like that information is so given to you, which also brings up that other topic of like how committed are we to learning this information when it's just so handed to you, like it's just right there. Like, are we lazy to go look up things? Are we lazy to read books about it? Are we lazy to find Black art authors to learn this information from? Or are we just gonna like hop on social media and read a 3-page thread on abolition and racism? Right. And I think, yeah, that's just been something I've been noticing.
Like, and I think you bring up a good point, Trinity. Like the thing that's kind of in my mind right now about it, right? Like that this information is so there, and it like, I hate saying it because it's like, but it's this idea, like, you know, the idea, the term trending, right? Like I hope it's just not a trending thing. Like, will this stick? Like, will these, like those who are making the shifts and those who are, whether that's person or institution or whatever, like, will those shifts stick? I question that. I don't know. I think some will. I think a lot will. I think what happened this week at the Capitol really ripped open some things, right? Like I think Black Lives Matter protests were reiterating and shining the spotlight, like, you know, amplified because of the injustices happening to pandemic. But Wednesday was just a whole nother thing. Do you think it'll stick? Do you think that these changes will stick in any level, right?
I mean, I hope so. It's been really interesting for me because I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and something that I'm really dedicated and like really passionate about keeping in my life, is the lesson of like mutual aid. And I think in the beginning of the pandemic, and especially with Black Lives Matter happening, it was like people were like, okay, listen, the government is not going to help us. We have to help each other. And that's kind of like the only way we can really jump through the hoops of like systemic racism and also other things like that. And for the first time, I was like, whoa, like we don't have to go through government procedures to like get immediate change, because it's not going to happen. So for me, that's something that was just like, for the first time, I was like, oh my God, like the power of community is like such a crazy thing. And just having the way that people were dedicated to helping each other, because they were like, for the first time, I think people were kind of just like, okay, wow, the government is giving us $1,200 for 8 months. What are we supposed to do with that? So that's something I know a lot, and I think it's one of the things I've seen that have just kept going. I think it started like in the summer of just people being like, okay, this Black person's struggling. This is what Cash App, send them money, you know, and it's been consistent. And that's something that I really, really love seeing, and something in my life that I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, on Juneteenth, everyone was like, send Black people reparations. That's something I'm going to keep trying to do, even as a Black person. You know, and just kind of like this, almost not a trend of doing this, but kind of just like send people money. Like if people do stuff, like send them money. And just also, I think it's really cool of like, you know, BIPOC being like, you know what, give me my reparations. Like the government's not going to give it to me. So community do it. I think that's really cool. So mutual aid is something that I think is not going to just disappear. At least I hope it's not.
Yeah, and you brought up like a great point, because like if anything that I've taken out of 2020 was that community is so powerful, and it just like it warms my heart so much. And like I've had to crowdfund this year, and the amount of support that I got, I was able to reach my goal for my family in like a little over a month. And that's money that people have to work more than just 1 month to earn. And I was like, I'm just so grateful, and that's something I'm gonna like take with me and like never forget. So yeah, the community is definitely powerful, and at the end of the day, we got us, and I think that's definitely gonna stick.
I think one thing that I've been thinking about with the will it stick is that, like, stopping thinking about this stuff and stopping spreading all this stuff is a privilege for people. Like, having it not stick is a privilege, because like, Black people and other people of color, they don't have that choice to stop, because it affects their daily lives. And like, you can't just stop with that stuff because it affects you directly. But they're like, white people have the choice to just not care. They have the choice to just not do anything about it because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
No, you definitely go.
Yeah, will it stick? I'm hopeful as well that it will, because of what you guys have already mentioned, the community. And we've seen that through history too, right? Where things are happening and what happens? We come together. Like whatever it is, most of us come together and we help each other out, and we see what our neighbors need, what our family needs. I think that's a superhuman trait that we have. And I think it's great. And I think that for the most part, we're not losing that. And this really showed that as well, right? Because it was like a pandemic and other things going on. We still like voted. We still, and also the people that are the leaders, right? Like the youth that are the leaders, the Black Lives Matter leaders, all these people that are leaders and that are coming together to still go out and march and protest and, make sure that, hey, yes, we're in a pandemic, but these things are also important because it's continuing to affect us. So we're not dying down. I really like take off my hat to those people, because while I was not out marching, but I was, trying to donate, like Maddie was saying a little bit, donate to these organizations that are doing the work, that are there on the streets, and I will continue to do that because I don't want it to die down. Like I think that it needs to continue, and so therefore it's like I'm hoping that it will stick because of all those reasons.
Yeah, I have to agree with you too, Estela, on that. I think I agree with everyone. Because I too didn't march this year, but I've marched other years. I just didn't. I wasn't in a place, but to see that as community, we can pass the baton. So it's like, okay, if y'all want to go march, I got you. You hit me up if we need anything. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go hustle and organize virtually or artistically or da 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 da. And everyone was just kind of like multitasking and all hitting it from different angles, which I was like, that's dope. And I love like seeing that right now because like I have TikTok, like, but I'm not like, I don't make videos, but I watch them. And just watching these TikTokers like take down these people from Wednesday and just like finding their accounts and finding these pictures, and this is where they go, and like all these accounts, like this is where they work, this is where they're, and just watching these people get fired and get just dealt with. And it's crazy to see that. And,
yeah,
and
I think
heartwarming.
that's something that's been so inspiring to me to just kind of being like on Twitter and people being like, okay, this is where this person works and this is what happened here, and like doing the FBI's job before the FBI is even doing it.
Right.
And it was just like kind of inspiring to me to see how if the one situation that comes to mind right now is before they even stormed the Capitol, the night before they were protesting, and this Black woman was walking through, and a white Trump supporter punched her in the face, and so she punched her back. And then on Twitter, they were like, the Black woman who punched her back was fired from her job for defending herself. And Twitter was like, this is her Cash App, where can I pay her salary? So it's like she was never not fired. So now those people that are actively sending her money and coming up with like a salary for her while she gets a new job and like stuff like that is just like amazing, because it's like, okay, the system let her down. You know, the institution was like, oh, well, you can't defend yourself even when you're not like in uniform, whatever. But those people that are like, you know what, no, like if your job's not going to be there for you, we are, you know. And I think that's really cool, of just kind of like this lesson of like accountability, and I think that's going to stick. I don't think people are going to be able to get away with what they were able to get away with before. I think that's something that's going to continue. I think there's just this level of tolerance that people have, and I don't think that's shifting. So that's something I feel very deep in my heart is going to stick. Just kind of like this, the act of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about like protesters, like risking their lives, like really, there's 3 different obstacles here. There's the possibility of running into Trump supporters, which is happening all the time. They would, if like We Rising or BLM Phoenix Metro, if we're having a protest and Trump supporters are at the Capitol, like that's danger. And then we got cops on our backs, and then pandemic. Like there's 3 ways you could possibly die and get injured. So it's like, I don't even know what to say about it. It's like, I don't have words for it, because it's just like people, we're really willing to risk our lives. Oh, something from earlier. I can't remember what exactly it was, Johann, but earlier we were talking about trending, and like trends typically don't stick. Like that's the purpose of a trend. It's temporary. But not to say that these 2 things are the same, but like environmentalism, and I'm going to bring my tote bag to the grocery store,
Right.
and I'm going to use my hydro flask instead of a water bottle.
Hey.
Like those are trends that haven't left. So I think we should treat like ending racism and things like that, like if like environmentalism to that same like accountability caliber. Like we're not gonna let this go because we really care about how many trees are planted. Like that needs to be at that same level of this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I think my reaction too is I'm really frustrated with folks who are like the Black Lives Matter like memes and photos and sayings of solidarity, right, online, and all these, you know, all these organizations and all these arts orgs and da 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 da, and then you're seeing here and there, not all of them, but you're seeing here and there those that are not, you know, following through, and it's like, oh, so this was just so like you can jump on the bandwagon, and we're like, no. But I think you're right. Like I think to kind of like tie all those in, where you were saying, Maddie, about the accountability, which that I agree. I don't think that's going to go away, because now it's like, oh, remember when y'all were posting those on Instagram and Facebook? You know, that's all digital receipts, right? Like it's all there, like so we can come back and be like, remember when you said this? So yeah, no, that's dope.
Yeah,
for a community.
The point that you were kind of making of like people just jumping on the bandwagon, you know, you've seen a lot of performative activism, and I think a lot of people are seeing straight through that now. I think before there were other other movements that people were kind of just like, oh no, these people are making like statements and stuff, and but it was all performative. I think now people are like, okay, there's no room for like this little Broadway play that you're putting on. And I think being able to differentiate that is cool, but I don't think I would have been able to do that without this movement, to see like how deep people will go to look like they're an ally but not. Like people that like posted those black squares on Instagram and was like, I solved racism, I'm done. Like that's it. you know, and just like, it's like interesting because as you were saying, those are digital receipts, you know. Oh, I can just go to someone's Instagram. Oh, you posted a black square, but you're, you know, saying this, and that about BIPOC people. So yeah, it's almost like that, being able to, the social media movement tied in with accountability, it's like they mesh, because you can't really have one without the other now, because you can just go back and be like, you said this, and that, so where's the action behind it?
Something that I'm thinking about right now is about like performative stuff. Is I don't know if you guys seen it, but I've seen it on Instagram where like Demi Lovato's getting backlash for some of the things she said, which like what happened with the Capitol. She was like, "This is, you know, I'm in the studio right now. I'm going to write a song about this," but she, you know, like she'll be profiting from that, and she probably won't even donate, you know, and like just like that enrages me so much because I've been seeing that so much with, you know, all these famous people, and it just like what I want to know is like, what is their thought process when they think of this and when they're, you know, doing this and posting it? Like, what's going on in their head? What makes them think that this is okay? Yeah, profiting off of trauma, exactly. I've been seeing that a lot, and that's like something like, you know, they're doing it performatively, and they make it seem like it's okay when it's really not. But like I've been so proud of people calling them out, and it's just like we're just going after people, and you know, it's okay not to show no mercy because this is a time where we don't need to, where, you know, we need to start doing this, we need to force this because this is how we're going to change everything.
Going back to the social media thing, I've had like a lot of conversations with my friends and family who are saying like, I've had to do a huge social media cleanse. I've had to unfollow so many people, like people who are posting the black square or people that you feel like are just performative or don't do anything for your spirit. But it's like, that's like an emotional cleanse of like having to let go of people that you felt like you had to trust. And I haven't had any of those conversations with people who aren't black. And I think that probably comes from a place of privilege, being able to keep these people around for like convenience, despite like their performative activism, and like not having to cleanse of those people.
That brought up a interesting conversation I had with a lot of my black friends in the beginning. Was just kind of, I remember my one friend posted, just remember like your black friends are watching very, very closely. And I remember like in June, it was like the middle of the night, and I like walked to my mom's room and I just started sobbing, and I was like, all of the white friends that I thought loved me can't be bothered to say a thing, you know? And it's just kind of, for me, and I know for a lot of black people, that's just like, you know, you're just proving you really don't care about my life and my rights. And it's like, I can't imagine doing that to my friends. But I think to my white friends, it's just kind of, they don't think that that's as heavy as it is. And so kind of, I feel like a lot of my black friends were kind of talking about like this journey of like, knowing that not everyone is worth your kindness anymore and your mercy, almost, as you were saying, Trinity. Like, I was always very quick to forgive like my white friends, like microaggressions or things like that. And I just, after this, I have no patience for that. And I think I needed that night to just like sob and be like, okay, well now, you know, I can cry about it now, but going forward, I'm not gonna take that stuff. It's just a time of showing no mercy, I feel like, because it's so much bigger than what people think it is on the surface. And I think Black and brown people understand that, but I think white people are still trying to get to that point of understanding just how deep it is, because they don't experience it and they don't feel it. And it's almost, sometimes I have to remind myself, it's like, I can't expect like my white friends to understand because they don't experience it the way I do, but I need them to understand that that's the way it is for me, and they shouldn't question that. And just, if that's how Black people are feeling, if that's how brown people are feeling, if that's how Indigenous people are feeling, as a white person, you need to accept that and say, okay, I won't understand, but I'm not going to say anything about how they're going through what they're going through.
I want to ask you, go ahead. No, go ahead, Trini.
Oh, yeah. I think a part of the problem is like, because things like police brutality are really visible, like it's out there, you can see that. but when it comes to things that are like you said, deeper, they like the roots, they go way back that you can't really see. Like, what I'm trying to, like, I don't know. You can see gentrification, but people, it takes a lot more work to understand it. And you can see when somebody might not be having a good day, but you don't understand like why their mental capacity is really low. So things like that.
Yeah, gentrification, that's such a messy thing, and the way you put it was right. Like, there's a difference, and I often wonder what's more malicious, right? Is it more malicious when someone's yelling in your face, something awful, or is it more malicious when someone like slowly sneaks its way in, and then next thing you know, you turn around and you don't recognize anything around you anymore, and that's just kind of how I don't know. Like for me, it's hard because I live in South Phoenix and I grew up all around Central. I don't live near there, but I go to Azúcar a lot, that coffee shop there, and it's just you see like I remember like one day just I have my normal route, and then now it's like Central is just in the middle of construction for the light rail, which everyone's looking at it as positive. Which yes, there are definite positive things, but I also know the trends of gentrification that happens when a light rail comes into a community, and people have been fighting, and it's very across the board. In South Phoenix, thoughts on it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not sustainable what Phoenix is doing at all when it comes to that kind of construction. And it's really sad to see that a city that's trying to change is still making very wrong moves that are just far in the past, just like those routes. And I mean, it affects a lot of people, and it's going to keep affecting people if we don't change the processes that we use, and we don't do the learning that we need to know. And and it's I hope, like you said, like people are seeing it as a good thing, but like there's a lot of more to that. And when you really look at the people who are being affected by it, that's when it becomes more clear. And honestly, it just is going to be one of those things where communities are going to step up, and we have a lot of strong communities. And I do feel like there's going to be a time, and it's already happening, where there's going to be a lot of pushback against that, and successful pushback against that for happening in the future.
Trinity, were you going to say something?
Yeah, it kind of goes in a different direction. I don't know.
Conversation.
It relates definitely though. So before living in Phoenix, I'm originally from Austin, Texas. And that is, I feel like to me, being from there, that is like
that's a real gentrified
capital.
Yes,
like,
it is.
It like that's the reason why like I can never go back home and see it the same way. Like that's not even my home anymore, and it breaks my heart because most of my family's there. But it's like how you take a city that's like always been historically Black, and now we have like build so many buildings and corporations and homes that have been taken and purchased by banks and stuff like this. Like it takes away the culture of the city and disregard for people who made the city what it is. So it just breaks my heart. And then being here in Phoenix, I'm like, I see it happening. I don't have as much of an emotional attachment to it, but I see it and I feel for people who have been here. Like we're on native land. There's people who have been here way before any of us. And it's like we're thieving this land and this culture that the city is embedded in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like during this time, and it was something that I know Mass Liberation Arizona always kind of speak about is like reimagining, and they were saying that the only way we can kind of like move forward and come up with new solutions is to completely reimagine things. And it was kind of like just imagine a world without police, and imagine a world without prisons. And I remember we were at a meeting where the Phoenix City Council was talking about the budget, and we were moving and watching and just, were shocked by just like all the crap that was coming out of that meeting. and Sean stopped, and they were like, we have to keep reimagining though in order to keep the momentum and like the hope to keep going. So it's just kind of like reimagining a world without gentrification is just so strange, especially a Phoenix without gentrification. And it's such a weird parallel to think about, because I think about like all the culture that's being lost through it. And, you know, only living in Phoenix for about a year and a half, I feel like this is such a place that's so rich in culture. And it's sad for me to like be here at a time where you can very much see, especially living downtown, things just shifting. We've been living in this apartment building for like a year, and it does not look anything like it did when we moved here, which is crazy. I like sometimes I see photos of like when we first moved in and like what, you know, looking out my window looked like, and I'm like, that's crazy that was a year ago. And I just think that it's losing culture and people and community. It's sad.
Yeah. No, we just had someone in our community. I live right on Baseline, and Baseline, if you've ever been down there in South Phoenix, like you run from Baseline to like 48th Street to like Central. Well, not as far as Central, but I would say like 16th Street. All along Baseline, that was the land that was right next to South Mountain. It was all Japanese gardens, like Japanese fields and like of flowers, and it was gorgeous. And I mean, over time that's gone away, and now like there was one flower shop that's left. And actually Mr. Nagawa, he just passed away last week, I think. He's like 80s, in his 80s. But yeah, it's that idea of like watching things just go away, and it looks different, and it sounds different. I don't know. Like I think I don't know, someone was talking earlier, and as I just started thinking about it, I almost had to stop from tearing up, just because it's like I mean, because I am at that point that I'm an elder, that like, you know, that I'm watching these shifts happening, and being in meetings with with the city, talking about the light rail, like as a community member, with concerns, like way before like anything was. This was a couple years ago, and like just the blatant disregard for the community's feelings or thoughts. But then it's hard when they get community who are going to be directly affected to fight for it, if that makes sense, right? Like, so like we're in the community and we're like, this is wrong, this is bad, like this is why. And then the other community who look like me, sound like me, live like me, like are going to be affected by it, or like, no, 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 no. And they just refuse to see what's coming. And it's not going to come today. It's not going to come tomorrow. It might not come in a couple years, but it's going to come, this negative impact. And you have to see that. You have, you know, and it's that idea people were talking about imagination, right? It's about opening your mind up bigger. And it's like, imagining the possibility to dream huge, because that's how we can succeed. But then also allow in these other contexts, dreaming big, to really think like, look, if things can happen negatively, and how can I reclaim that? How can I, but I don't know. It's hard.
You brought up like an interesting point, because the people who are really making that effort to preserve the culture of the city are BIPOC people. And when we go inside of these coffee shops and these little like local shops and boutiques, like they're owned by BIPOC people. And it makes a really interesting, I guess, juxtaposition. Never use that word in context. We like, it's like having to buy buildings in this largely like growing city with this growing white population, having to like buy these buildings back. It makes me feel weird.
Yeah. Own land. That's what everyone tells me. They're like, buy land. If you have money, get land, buy property. Like, you know.
Yeah, people were saying to do that with like stimulus checks. Like on Twitter, they were like, buy land. It's like, what?
What land am I getting for $600?
Right. What land am I gonna buy for $600? I remember seeing that, like this thread, and like it got a bunch of quote tweets, and this guy was like, we need to use this money to buy land, and it's like, that's what you're worried about? Like but it shows you how worried people are kind of about it. And I remember reading this story about this woman in Georgia who bought a bunch of land to make like this black city. And it's crazy because like she had to do that in Georgia. She had to buy her own land to make a black community in Georgia. Like, it's insane that like that's something that has to happen. Like, she said she wanted to have a space where black people could come and buy, you know, black products and a space for black culture. And it's like, you live in Georgia. Like, that shouldn't be something that, you know, you worry about in a space that's like, you think, you know, how far away is that from like Atlanta, which is like this hub of like black culture essentially. And the fact that people are so scared that that's gonna go away so quickly, and are like scurrying to buy space so that they can preserve their cultures is insane.
Yeah, I see. So I see gentrification as like a means to continue that racism, right? Like that history of racism. Except like originally you stated, Ricky, at the beginning, like very subtle, very like under, like where you can't really see it because it's disguised at, oh, it's something great for our community, or it's something great for right, right, you know, and but those are the things too where we're like, oh, okay, so we're conscious of that now, right? We could be conscious of that, and then how to fight that though, that's like the thing where I'm still like stuck, because it's the power that the people have, not the people like the community, but the people that are coming in to gentrify, right? And so you know, it's sad because it's like subtle again, where it's like they'll raise your rent, you know, start by like raising your rent, because that's what's happened to me in the past, where I've had to like move, because and then there's like nowhere for you to go. And it's like, okay, well, what do? You know, then you have to start like maybe moving in with family members or moving in with people, like, you know, things like that start to happen, and it's like that's not okay. So just I think that is something also that we need to really hopefully maybe focus on now coming into the future, where okay, now that we've kind of got a hold on like this racism part, and we know what we need to do as a community to you know to get through that more and more. Now it's like, okay, let's deal with gentrification. You know, how can we really like come in there and be like, no, you are not going to kick me out of my community. You are not going to kick these businesses, family owned businesses, out of the communities. And we really need to work together to, if you do want to build something here or do something here, like this is how it's going to, like, taking that power back somehow. How? I mean, I don't know. Cause it's, you know, it's, again, it's these people that have the power, and the power is the money. Right. And so, I don't know. That's what I think about that. It sucks.
And there's a clear difference between fixing old rundown buildings and fixing rundown buildings, raising rent, kicking you out, and then like adding a gift shop. Like, there's a difference. They're trying so hard to make it synonymous to where we don't notice because it's happening so slowly. By the time, like, we're pretty young. About in 15, 20 years, you can't even imagine what this place is gonna look like.
Right. But community, I think at the end of the day, like whether it's a pandemic or whether it's gentrification, holding people accountable, like community is always gonna rise up, and that's what we're seeing, and that's what I think is giving me, like, that's what pulls me out of my like anxiety, panics, because it's like, you know what, someone does got my back, right? Someone does have our backs. Someone, and I have got other people's backs. Like, we're gonna pull through because just because that's our power.
Exactly, because that's our power, and we are powerful. And that is really, at the end of the day, what these racist white people are afraid of. They've always been afraid of that, of us really taking our power back, and saying, okay, that's it. You're no longer in charge. Like, we're all in charge.
And we're like, nope. And cancel. Sweet.